Black billionaire girl's seat stolen by white passenger. Seconds later, passenger removed from plane. Oh sweetie, I think you're confused. This is my seat. Those words, dripping with fake concern and hidden venom, were about to cost this entitled passenger everything. Because the 13-year-old black girl standing in the airplane aisle wasn't confused at all. She was Zoe Ethan, daughter of billionaire tech mogul William Ethan, and she was about to teach this racist Laura the most expensive lesson of her life. What happened next on this luxury flight will shock you, restore your faith in humanity, and prove that instant karma is real when you mess with the wrong family. Ma'am, this is my boarding pass. It clearly says seat 2A, Zoe replied with the kind of calm that comes from being raised right. Jennifer's perfectly manicured fingers gripped the armrest tighter. Sweetie, boarding passes can be wrong. I've been sitting here since I boarded. You must have misread your ticket. What this entitled Laura didn't know was that 30 passengers were recording. What she didn't know was that her victim was worth more money than she could imagine. And what she didn't know was that in the next hour, her racist assumptions would go viral, destroy her reputation, and cost her everything. This shocking airplane drama will restore your faith in humanity and prove that instant karma is real when you target the wrong family. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. Welcome back to Black and Bruised Stories. If you're new here, you've just joined a community dedicated to truth, justice, and survival. Show some love by clicking the like and subscribe button. Before we dive deeper into this story, drop a comment, where you are watching from and what time it is for you right now. 3 hours earlier, 13-year-old Zoe Ethan sat on a worn carpet at the Downtown Youth Literacy Center in Chicago, surrounded by eager children whose eyes sparkled with the kind of hope that can only come from discovering you can actually read. And then the dragon realized, Zoe read with animated wonder, that the greatest treasure wasn't gold or jewels, but the friends who believed in him. Little Maria, barely 7 years old, bounced with excitement. Miss Zoe, will you read another one? What these children didn't know was that they were being taught by someone whose weekly allowance could probably fund their entire school district. But Zoe Ethan wasn't there out of obligation or guilt. She was there because her father had taught her the most important lesson wealth could buy. Real power comes from lifting others up, not putting them down. This shocking airport drama is about to go viral. Subscribe now because what you're about to witness will blow your mind and prove that entitled Lauras always get what they deserve. Mrs. Patricia Wells, the shelter director, watched from the doorway with 20 years of experience telling her that this 13-year-old was something special. But even she had no idea that Zoe had already changed over 200 lives through her literacy programs, or that she was personally funding educational initiatives across 3 states. Zoe's phone buzzed with her father's photo, a candid shot of William Ethan laughing while they volunteered at a soup kitchen. Kids, I need to take this call, but keep practicing those words we learned. In the director's small office, surrounded by children's artwork and certificates of appreciation, Zoe answered with immediate warmth. Hi, Daddy. Hey, sweetheart. How are my literacy warriors doing today? William Ethan's voice carried that mix of pride and concern that only comes from being a father who truly understands his responsibility. Amazing! Maria read her first full sentence today, and Jerome finally finished that chapter book. Dad, you should see their faces when they realize they can actually read these stories by themselves. That's incredible, Zoe. Are you ready for your Denver trip? Mrs. Chin is picking you up in an hour. Yes, I'm ready. I've got all the reading materials for the new centers, and the funding proposals are in my backpack. Dad, do you really think we can expand to 3 more cities? Sweetheart, with your passion and determination, I think we can change the world. But remember what we talked about. This trip isn't about our family or our money. It's about those children who need someone to believe in them. I know that. Real wealth is measured by how much you give, not how much you have. That's my girl. Now, I need you to remember something else. Flying alone, even in first class, might draw attention. Some people might treat you differently when they see a young black girl in places they don't expect. Are you prepared for that? At 13, Zoe had already learned enough about the world to understand exactly what her father meant. I'll be okay, Dad. Mrs. Washington from the Civil Rights Museum is on the same flight. Ruby Washington? Zoe, that woman is a living legend. You stick close to her if you need anything. I will. Dad, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. Change the world today. Have you ever been underestimated because of your age or appearance? How did it make you feel? An hour later, Zoe walked through O'Hare International Airport with Mrs. Chen, wearing an expensive pink gown and expensive watch hidden under her sleeve, a gift from her father inscribed with, "Time is the most valuable thing we can give." At the first-class check-in counter, Sandra, the middle-aged agent, looked up with surprise. Sweetie, are you sure you're in the right line? The main check-in is over there. Zoe smiled patiently and handed over her boarding pass. I'm Zoe Ethan, seat 2A to Denver. Sandra's eyes widened as she processed the information. First class, premium seat, every document perfectly legitimate. Oh, I'm so sorry. Everything looks perfect here. Are you traveling for something special? I'm expanding our literacy program to 3 new cities. We're hoping to help another 500 children learn to read this year. Sandra's entire demeanor shifted. This wasn't just some kid on a field trip. This was a 13-year-old talking about literacy programs with the confidence of a seasoned executive. That's incredible. You're doing amazing work. Thank you, but it's really the kids who do the amazing work. I just try to give them the tools they need. Make sure you hit that notification bell because what happens next will show you exactly why assumptions about people can be the most dangerous thing you carry onto an airplane. At the gate, Zoe found a quiet corner and pulled out her homework. Yes, even while running a charitable foundation and traveling across the country to help children, Zoe Ethan still had algebra to finish. Because William Ethan insisted that being extraordinary in one area didn't excuse being ordinary in others. But as Zoe worked on her math problems, something interesting was happening around her. Other passengers at the gate began to notice this young girl with her Literacy Center t-shirt, quietly doing homework while surrounded by presentation materials about helping children read. An elderly businessman, Frank Peterson, 65, sitting nearby, couldn't help but glance at her materials. "Excuse me, young lady," he said gently, "I couldn't help but notice your work there. Are you involved in education?" Zoe looked up with that same warm smile. "Yes, sir, I run literacy programs for children who need help learning to read. We've helped over 200 kids so far." Frank's eyebrows rose. "You run these programs? At your age?" "Well, I started them with my father's help, but yes, sir. I do most of the day-to-day coordination, the funding proposals, and I visit the centers regularly to read with the children." Frank was amazed. In his 40 years as a school administrator, he'd rarely seen such genuine passion for education in someone so young. "That's remarkable. What drives you to do this work?" "My dad always says that if you're lucky enough to have opportunities, you should create opportunities for others. These kids just need someone to believe they can learn." Melissa Torres, 30s, a young mother traveling with her 8-year-old daughter, overheard the conversation. "Sophia," she whispered to her daughter, "listen to what this young lady is saying about helping other children." Sophia looked at Zoe with wide eyes. "You really help kids learn to read?" "I do. And you know what? You can help too, just by reading to younger kids in your neighborhood or at your school. Every time you read to someone else, you're being a teacher." This simple conversation was creating a ripple effect around the gate area. Passengers were putting down their phones, listening to this 13-year-old talk about literacy and service with the wisdom of someone twice her age. You're watching something beautiful happen here. This is what real influence looks like. Not demanding attention, but earning it through genuine purpose. Keep watching because this airport scene is about to make what happens on the plane even more shocking. When boarding began, Zoe walked onto the Boeing 777 with the same quiet confidence she'd shown at the Literacy Center and at the gate. But now she had something she didn't realize: witnesses who had seen her character, passengers who knew exactly who she was and what she represented. Flight attendant Rosa Martinez noticed her immediately. In 15 years of flying, Rosa had developed an ability to read passengers quickly, and Zoe Ethan radiated the kind of genuine kindness that was becoming increasingly rare. "Welcome aboard, sweetheart. What takes you to Denver?" "I'm working on expanding literacy programs for underprivileged children. We're hoping to open 3 new centers this year." Rosa paused in her pre-flight routine. When was the last time a passenger, especially a young one, had spoken about helping others with such genuine passion? "That's incredible. How did you get involved in that kind of work?" Zoe pulled out a small photo herself reading to children at the Chicago Center. "My dad taught me that if you're lucky enough to have opportunities, you should create opportunities for others. These kids just need someone to believe they can learn." "Your dad sounds like a wise man." "He is. He always says that character isn't what you do when people are watching, it's what you do when no one important is watching." Carlos Rivera, in his 40s, the first-class flight attendant, overheard this conversation while preparing the cabin. He approached with curiosity. "Miss, did I hear correctly that you're expanding literacy programs? My nephew struggles with reading, and his school doesn't have many resources." Zoe's face lit up. "Absolutely. After we get settled in Denver, we're planning to expand to 5 more cities next year." "What city is your nephew in?" "Phoenix, Arizona." Zoe pulled out a small notebook and wrote down the information. "I'll make sure our foundation contacts the Phoenix School District. Every child deserves access to reading support." Carlos was stunned. This 13-year-old had just offered to help his nephew without hesitation, without knowing anything about their family's financial situation, simply because she believed every child deserved help. As other passengers boarded, Zoe organized her presentation materials with efficiency that would impress business executives twice her age. She had charts showing reading improvement rates, budget projections for new centers, testimonials from children whose lives had been changed by learning to read, and photographs from literacy centers across 3 states. Have you ever met a young person who inspired you with their maturity and purpose? What impact did they have on you? In row 1A, an elderly black woman settled into her seat with the grace of someone who had lived through history and emerged stronger. This was Mrs. Ruby Washington, though Zoe didn't recognize her yet. But Mrs. Washington noticed Zoe immediately, the purposeful organization, the genuine respect she'd shown the flight attendants, the quiet dignity that seemed remarkable for someone so young. Mrs. Washington had spent 78 years observing young people, and there was something special about the girl in 2A. She pulled out her speech for next week's Presidential Medal of Freedom ceremony and smiled, thinking about how this young lady embodied the exact values she would be talking about. The boarding process continued peacefully. Frank Peterson from the gate took his seat in 1C and nodded approvingly at Zoe. Melissa Torres and her daughter Sophia settled into row 4, with Sophia whispering excitedly about the reading teacher lady they'd met. Then the atmosphere changed completely when Jennifer Whitfield made her grand entrance. You could feel this entitled Laura's presence before you could see her. Jennifer Whitfield didn't just enter the plane, she demanded attention, commanded respect she hadn't earned, and owned every space in her mind before she'd even shown her boarding pass. Picture this viral airplane nightmare waiting to happen. 5'6", blonde hair that cost more than most monthly salaries, designer clothes that screamed wealth instead of whispering class, and jewelry that caught the light like it was personally trying to blind everyone around her. But it wasn't her appearance that made people uncomfortable. It was her Laura energy. Excuse me. Jennifer's voice cut through the peaceful boarding like nails on expensive marble. "Why is this taking so long? I have a very important schedule to keep." Behind her, struggling with 4 designer bags and what appeared to be a garment bag, was Jake Morrison, 28 years old, former college athlete, now reduced to being Jennifer's personal assistant. The exhaustion in his eyes told the story of someone trapped in employment hell by student loans and desperation. "Ma'am, we're boarding according to our standard process," the gate agent replied with practiced patience. "Standard process?" Jennifer's voice rose dangerously. "Do you know who I am? I'm Jennifer Whitfield. My husband owns Whitfield Real Estate. We own half the buildings in Manhattan." The passengers who had just witnessed Zoe's kindness and humility were now watching this display of entitlement with growing disgust. Frank Peterson shook his head. Melissa Torres pulled her daughter closer. The contrast was stark and unmistakable. Furthermore, I specifically requested expedited boarding. I have a very important dinner tonight in Denver, and I cannot afford delays because of inefficiency. Have you ever witnessed an airplane Laura in the wild? Someone who confused money with manners and thought their bank balance gave them the right to treat flight attendants like servants? Keep watching because this entitled passenger drama is about to show you what happens when that attitude meets someone who actually understands what real power looks like. Finally, Jennifer boarded the aircraft, but her performance was far from over. Jake, put the bags in the overhead carefully. That garment bag has a $7,000 dress for tonight's charity gala. And make sure you get my pillow from the Louis Vuitton bag. As Jake struggled with the luggage, Jennifer surveyed first class like a queen inspecting her domain. Her eyes swept past Frank Peterson in 1C, the elderly woman in 1A reading what appeared to be a speech, and then landed on seat 2A. That's when Jennifer Whitfield's perfectly ordered world tilted off its axis. There, quietly working in her assigned window seat, was a 13-year-old black girl wearing faded jeans and a literacy program t-shirt. Her hair was natural, pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was taking notes like she belonged there. Jennifer checked her boarding pass. Seat 2B. Right next to this child. Everything about this picture violated Jennifer's sense of natural order. In her worldview, 13-year-old black girls belonged in economy class, preferably on different flights entirely. But what Jennifer didn't know was that half the first-class cabin had already met this remarkable young lady and witnessed her character firsthand. Excuse me. Jennifer's voice cut through the peaceful boarding like nails on expensive marble. Why is this taking so long? I have a very important schedule to keep. Behind her, struggling with 4 designer bags and what appeared to be a garment bag, was Jake Morrison, 28 years old, former college athlete, now reduced to being Jennifer's personal assistant. The exhaustion in his eyes told the story of someone trapped in employment hell by student loans and desperation. "Ma'am, we're boarding according to our standard process," the gate agent replied with practiced patience. "Standard process?" Jennifer's voice rose dangerously. "Do you know who I am? I'm Jennifer Whitfield. My husband owns Whitfield Real Estate. We own half the buildings in Manhattan." The way she said, "these people," while glancing at the diverse group of passengers made everyone uncomfortable. But Jennifer wasn't done establishing her perceived superiority. Furthermore, I specifically requested expedited boarding. I have a very important dinner tonight in Denver, and I cannot afford delays because of inefficiency. Have you ever witnessed an airplane Laura in the wild? Someone who confused money with manners and thought their bank balance gave them the right to treat flight attendants like servants? Keep watching because this entitled passenger drama is about to show you what happens when that attitude meets someone who actually understands what real power looks like. Finally, Jennifer boarded the aircraft, but her performance was far from over. Jake, put the bags in the overhead carefully. That garment bag has a $7,000 dress for tonight's charity gala. As Jake struggled with the luggage, Jennifer surveyed first class like a queen inspecting her domain. Her eyes swept past the businessman in 1B, the elderly woman in 1A reading what appeared to be a speech, and then landed on seat 2A. That's when Jennifer Whitfield's perfectly ordered world tilted off its axis. There, quietly working in her assigned window seat, was a 13-year-old black girl wearing faded jeans and a literacy program t-shirt. Her hair was natural, pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she was taking notes like she belonged there. Jennifer checked her boarding pass. Seat 2B. Right next to this child. Everything about this picture violated Jennifer's sense of natural order. In her worldview, 13-year-old black girls belonged in economy class, preferably on different flights entirely. Zoe looked up with a warm, genuine smile that could have melted winter. "Hi, I'm Zoe. Are you sitting in 2B? I'm so excited to have a seat, neighbor." Jennifer stared for a long moment, her brain trying to process this impossible scenario. "Hello," she replied with a fake smile that never reached her cold eyes. "I'm Jennifer Whitfield." "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Whitfield. Are you traveling to Denver for business or pleasure?" "Business, obviously. Very important business. The way Jennifer emphasized, obviously, and very important, made it clear she didn't believe a 13-year-old could understand important anything. I'm expanding literacy programs to help children in underserved communities learn to read. We're hoping to open 3 new centers this year. Jennifer's fake smile became more strained. This child was talking about literacy programs like she was running them. Ridiculous. Clearly some kind of diversity program or publicity stunt. Oh, how nice. A field trip of sorts? Not exactly. I founded the program with my father. We've helped over 200 children learn to read so far. Founded? Founded? Jennifer's mind rejected this information entirely. 13-year-old black girls didn't found anything in Jennifer's universe. Have you ever met someone who immediately judged you based on your appearance? How did you handle it? From her seat in 1A, Mrs. Ruby Washington was watching this interaction with 78 years of experience recognizing racist encounters. The Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient had seen this exact scenario countless times, privileged white people encountering black excellence and responding with disbelief and hostility. As Jennifer settled into 2B, her discomfort was palpable. She'd paid $14,000 to travel with the right kind of people, and here she was next to someone who clearly didn't belong in her narrow worldview. What happened next would prove that some people's hatred runs so deep, they're willing to destroy their own lives just to make someone else feel small. Don't miss this viral airplane confrontation. Hit that subscribe button because this entitled Laura is about to make a decision that will destroy her life and create the most shocking flight drama you've ever seen. For 20 minutes, Jennifer waged a campaign of passive-aggressive warfare. She spread her belongings into Zoe's space, claimed both armrests, and made deliberately loud phone calls designed to establish her superiority. "Richard, you won't believe the situation. I'm dealing with this flight," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Some child is claiming seats she clearly doesn't belong in. I'm sure there's been some computer error with these diversity programs." Zoe continued working on her presentation notes, but her shoulders had tensed. Every 13-year-old in the world would have been hurt by this treatment, but Zoe had been raised to respond to cruelty with grace. Mrs. Washington had heard enough. She turned in her seat with the authority of someone who'd marched with Dr. King. "Young lady," she addressed Jennifer with quiet power, "I've been watching this for 20 minutes, and what I've seen is shameful." "This doesn't concern you," Jennifer began. "Injustice always concerns me. Always has, always will." But Jennifer was too entitled to back down, too privileged to admit wrong. The tension was building toward an explosion that would shock everyone aboard. Then Zoe said something that would give Jennifer the opportunity she'd been waiting for. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom before takeoff." The moment Zoe disappeared, Jennifer saw her chance for the ultimate power play. "Jake, move my things to seat 2A. Now." Jake stared at his employer in horror. "Ma'am, that's her assigned seat. Do you want to keep this job?" The threat was crystal clear. With shaking hands, Jake moved Jennifer's belongings to Zoe's window seat while 30 passengers watched in stunned silence. Mrs. Washington's face darkened with recognition. She'd seen this exact tactic in the 1960s. When Zoe returned 2 minutes later, she found Jennifer Whitfield sitting in her seat, surrounded by designer belongings, acting like she'd been there all along. "Excuse me, I think you're in my seat." This is the viral airplane moment that would destroy Laura's life. "Oh, sweetie, I think you're confused. This is my seat. You must have misread your boarding pass." The gaslighting was masterful. Jennifer was rewriting history in real time, betting that a 13-year-old would doubt herself rather than challenge an adult's lies. "Ma'am, this is my boarding pass. It clearly says seat 2A. Jennifer examined her own pass with theatrical confusion. "Oh dear, mine says 2A as well. But I've been sitting here since I boarded. Are you sure you didn't make a mistake?" "No ma'am, I'm not confused. I was sitting here for 20 minutes before I went to the bathroom." Jennifer's mask began slipping. "Sweetie, perhaps you were originally in economy and there was some kind of upgrade situation? These things happen with certain programs." The certain programs comment was pure racism, implying Zoe was there through charity rather than legitimate purchase. Other passengers were pulling out phones, recording this unbelievable display of entitled bigotry. The businessman in 1C was live streaming to Twitter. Mrs. Washington stood up with the authority of someone who'd faced down police dogs for civil rights. "Young lady, I watched you move your belongings to that seat while this child was in the bathroom." But Jennifer had committed to her lie, and people like her never back down when caught. They escalate. "I don't care what any of you think. I paid for this seat, I've been sitting in this seat, and I am not moving." Can you believe the audacity of this airplane, Laura? Can you imagine being 13 years old and watching an entitled adult steal from you while lying to your face? Keep watching because instant karma is coming, and this viral airplane drama is about to teach this racist passenger the most expensive lesson of her life. Head flight attendant Charles Bradford arrived to find a white woman stealing a black child's seat while lying about it to his crew. In 25 years of flying, he'd never seen racism this blatant. After checking both boarding passes, the truth was undeniable. "Mrs. Whitfield, your boarding pass shows seat 2B, not 2A. That must be a printing error." I don't care what her boarding pass shows, there's obviously been some system error. The mask was completely off now. Jennifer was screaming at flight crew, lying to their faces, and refusing to accept documented reality. But she had no idea that her victim was about to reveal information that would turn this from a simple seat dispute into the biggest mistake of Jennifer's privileged life. At what point would you have started recording this airplane, Laura? Do you think passengers have a responsibility to document racist behavior and make it go viral? Actually, I'm texting Captain Hayes. She and my father are friends. Jennifer laughed nervously, but there was panic creeping into her voice. Captains don't get text messages from passengers, sweetie. That's not how airlines work. Captain Hayes and my father went to MIT together. They've been friends for 20 years. The color began draining from Jennifer's face. Engineering. Personal friendship with the captain. These weren't the credentials of someone on a charity program. Frank Peterson, who had been recording the entire confrontation, leaned forward. "Miss Zoe, did you say Captain Hayes?" "Diana Hayes?" "Yes, sir. Do you know her?" Frank smiled. "I've known Captain Hayes for 15 years through various aviation industry events. She's remarkable, first black female captain at this airline, absolutely brilliant pilot. If she's friends with your father, he must be someone very special." Jennifer felt like the walls were closing in. This child wasn't just claiming to know the captain. Other passengers were confirming the connection. "What did you say your last name was?" Jennifer's voice cracked with growing panic. "Ethan. Zoe Ethan." Jennifer's hands fumbled for her phone, typing, "Zoe Ethan MIT father," with shaking fingers. The search results made her blood turn to ice. 13-year-old philanthropist Zoe Ethan expands literacy program nationwide. Ethan Foundation donates $50 million to education initiatives. William Ethan, CEO Ethan Global Technologies, net worth $4.2 billion, billionaire's daughter speaks at UNESCO conference. Her phone clattered to the floor. $4.2 billion. The 13-year-old girl she'd been harassing, the child she'd accused of fraud, the young lady she'd tried to humiliate, she was the daughter of one of America's most powerful men. Jake Morrison, watching his former employer's face go white with terror, had been Googling Zoe Ethan since she'd introduced herself. "Mrs. Whitfield," he whispered urgently, "maybe you should apologize right now and—" "Shut up, Jake," Jennifer hissed, but her voice lacked conviction. She was scrolling through more search results, each one making her situation worse. William Ethan named Tech Visionary of the Year. Ethan Global Technologies stock reaches all-time high. Billionaire philanthropist pledges half his fortune to education. Then she saw something that made her go completely pale. Ethan Global Technologies announces major investment in airline industry. William Ethan's company acquires 23% stake in major airline holding company. Jake had found the same article. "Mrs. Whitfield," he whispered, "her father's company owns part of this airline." Jennifer was having what could only be described as a panic attack. She hadn't just harassed any child. She'd harassed the daughter of a man who could destroy her family's business with a single phone call. You can see the exact moment this airplane Laura realizes she's made the biggest mistake of her life. But wait until you see what happens when the captain actually shows up. Mrs. Washington, who had been watching this revelation unfold, turned to Zoe with admiration. "Sweetheart, your father sounds like an incredible man." "He is," Zoe replied simply. "He always taught me that wealth is just a tool. What matters is how you use it to help others." Melissa Torres called out from row 4, "Zoe, I just Googled your literacy programs. You've really helped over 200 children learn to read." 234 as of last month, Zoe answered with genuine pride. "But each one of those children did the real work. I just provided the books and the encouragement." Jennifer was listening to this exchange with growing horror. Every word out of Zoe's mouth confirmed that she was everything Jennifer wasn't: humble despite incredible wealth, kind despite having every reason to be arrogant, gracious despite being subjected to hours of racist harassment. Carlos Rivera approached with obvious respect. "Miss Ethan, I apologize for not recognizing you earlier. My supervisor just told me about your family's donations to airline employee education programs. Your foundation helped pay for my cousin's pilot training." "That's wonderful." Zoe's face lit up. "Is he flying now?" "He got his commercial license last month, thanks to the scholarship your family provided." Jennifer felt sick. This child's family had helped the flight attendant's cousin become a pilot, and Jennifer had been questioning her right to be on the plane. That's when Captain Diana Hayes appeared in the first-class cabin. Captain Hayes was a striking woman, tall, confident, wearing her uniform with the kind of authority that came from breaking barriers and exceeding expectations. She commanded respect through competence, not convenience. "Good afternoon, passengers. I received a message about a passenger issue." "Captain Hayes." Zoe's face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Thank you for coming. I'm sorry to bother you during the flight." "Zoe, Ethan, wonderful to see you. Your father told me you might be on one of my flights someday. How is William doing?" "He's great. Still working too hard, but he says the same thing about me." The casual familiarity between captain and passenger was impossible to fake. Jennifer felt reality completely crashing down around her. "I haven't seen your dad since the MIT alumni dinner last month," Captain Hayes continued. "He mentioned you were expanding the literacy programs. That's incredible work you're doing." "Thank you, Captain Hayes. Dad always says you were the smartest one in your engineering class." Captain Hayes laughed. "Your father was always too generous with his praise. Now, what seems to be the issue here?" Frank Peterson spoke up first. "Captain, I've been recording this entire incident. This woman," he gestured toward Jennifer, "took Miss Ethan's assigned seat while she was in the bathroom, then lied about it, then spent an hour making racist comments about her not belonging in first class." Mrs. Washington added her voice. "Captain, I watched the entire thing unfold. This woman has been harassing this child for over an hour, questioning her documentation, her right to be here, and making loud phone calls about diversity programs and proper procedures." Captain Hayes's expression hardened. In her 20 years of flying, she'd dealt with every type of passenger problem imaginable. But harassment of minors, especially racially motivated harassment, was something she took very personally. "Is this accurate?" she asked, looking directly at Jennifer. Jennifer opened her mouth to lie, to spin the story, to maintain her victim narrative. But how do you lie to a captain who clearly knows the other passenger personally? How do you maintain fiction when 30 witnesses had watched the truth unfold? "There was a misunderstanding about seating assignments," Jennifer managed to stammer. "What kind of misunderstanding?" Captain Hayes asked, her voice carrying the kind of authority that made lying feel impossible. I thought the boarding passes seemed..." Jennifer's voice trailed off. She couldn't finish the lie. Not to this captain, not in front of these witnesses, not when her phone was still displaying search results about Zoe Ethan's family wealth and her father's business empire. This is the moment when lies meet reality, when privilege meets accountability, and when an airplane Laura learns that some mistakes can't be undone. "Is William doing?" The casual familiarity was impossible to fake. Jennifer felt reality crashing down around her. After hearing witness statements, Captain Hayes's expression hardened. Mrs. Whitfield, harassment of minors is a federal offense. Creating disturbances that threaten passenger safety is grounds for immediate removal. However, Miss Ethan has indicated she's comfortable continuing the flight. But one more disruption and we divert to the nearest airport where federal authorities will be waiting. You're also being placed on our no-fly list. Jennifer felt her privileged world crumbling. Banned from her preferred airline because she couldn't control her racism for 2 hours. Now, I believe you owe Miss Ethan an apology. I'm sorry, Jennifer whispered. Louder. I'm sorry. Zoe looked at her with eyes holding no anger, just sadness. Thank you, Mrs. Whitfield. I hope you learned something from this. The kindness in Zoe's response made Jennifer feel smaller than she'd ever felt. Subscribe now because this entitled passenger's downfall is about to go viral and show you that instant karma is real when you mess with the wrong billionaire family. As the plane landed, this entitled Laura's racist meltdown was already going viral across social media. The businessman's Twitter video was exploding across the internet with the caption, "Watched an airplane Laura steal a 13-year-old seat, lie about it, then have a racist meltdown when caught. The young lady handled it with more grace than most adults. Hashtag airplane Laura, hashtag instant karma, hashtag justice served." Within 6 hours, the video had over 2 million views. By the end of the week, it had reached 50 million people across all platforms. But the viral story wasn't about Jennifer's racism, it was about Zoe's incredible character and grace under pressure. Airport security met Jennifer at the gate. Federal charges were filed. Her husband fielded calls from business partners who'd seen the viral videos. Jennifer, the girl's father, owns 23% of the airline's parent company. This entitled Laura behavior has destroyed us. But what happened next will show you that sometimes the most powerful justice isn't punishment, it's transformation. The legal consequences for Jennifer were swift and severe. Federal charges for harassment of a minor passenger. Interference with flight crew. Filing false reports. The prosecutor's office, seeing the viral nature of the case, decided to make an example that would deter similar behavior. Jennifer faced potential prison time, hefty fines, and a permanent criminal record. Her lawyer painted a grim picture. Jennifer, you're looking at up to 2 years in federal prison, $50,000 in fines, and this will follow you for the rest of your life. But then something unexpected happened. William Ethan's legal team contacted Jennifer's attorney with an unusual proposal. Mr. Ethan and his daughter are willing to support reduced charges in exchange for Mrs. Whitfield's participation in a comprehensive restorative justice program. No prison time, but extensive community service, bias education, and public speaking about the consequences of racist behavior. Jennifer's lawyer was stunned. They're offering you a lifeline. Most families would want maximum prosecution. Why would they do that? Jennifer asked, still not understanding the character of the people she had targeted. Because, the lawyer explained, they believe in redemption over revenge. They think you can become a better person and help prevent others from making the same mistakes. This is what real power looks like, using it to transform lives rather than destroy them. The restorative justice program was comprehensive and challenging. Jennifer spent 200 hours working at literacy centers, the same type of programs Zoe ran. She tutored struggling readers, organized book drives, and witnessed firsthand the impact of educational inequality. At first, Jennifer approached the work with resentment, seeing it as punishment. But gradually, something began to change. She met children like 8-year-old William, named after William Ethan, though she didn't know it, who struggled to read simple sentences. She worked with teenagers who had given up on education because no one had ever believed in them. "Mrs. Jennifer," little William said one day, "why are you helping us? Most grown-ups don't care about kids like me." The question hit Jennifer like a physical blow. This child, whose life circumstances she had never considered, was thanking her for basic human decency that should have been automatic. Dr. Sarah Chin, the program director, watched Jennifer's transformation with professional fascination. In 30 years of restorative justice work, I've rarely seen someone change as fundamentally as Jennifer has. She's not just going through the motions, She's genuinely becoming a different person. 6 months later, Jennifer Whitfield stood before high school students as part of her court-ordered education program. "I want you to understand," she said, her voice carrying a humility that would have been unrecognizable to anyone who knew her before the airplane incident, "that racism isn't just about burning crosses or using slurs. It's about assumptions. It's about believing that some people belong in certain places and others don't. It's about letting your prejudices convince you that you're better than someone else." In the back of the classroom, Zoe Ethan sat quietly, listening to Jennifer's presentation. This was part of the restorative justice program. Victims had the opportunity to observe the educational process and provide feedback. "I saw a 13-year-old black girl in first class," Jennifer continued, "and I immediately assumed she didn't belong there. I didn't see her character, her accomplishments, or her humanity. I saw only my own prejudices reflected back at me." The students were riveted. This wasn't a theoretical discussion about racism. This was a real person describing real consequences of real prejudice. "The worst part," Jennifer continued, her voice breaking slightly, "is that I hurt a child. A remarkable, kind, brilliant child who was traveling to help other children learn to read. While I was focused on what I thought she didn't deserve, she was focused on what she could give to others." After the presentation, Jennifer approached Zoe hesitantly. "Miss Ethan, I want you to know that participating in this program has been the most important education of my life. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, because I'm not sure I deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm trying to become the person I should have been from the beginning." Zoe looked at her thoughtfully. "Mrs. Whitfield, forgiveness isn't something you earn. It's something you choose to give. And I forgave you that day on the airplane, not because you deserved it, but because carrying anger and hatred would have hurt me more than it hurt you." Jennifer felt tears welling up in her eyes. "How did you become so wise at 13 years old?" "My father taught me that our character isn't defined by how we treat people who can help us. It's defined by how we treat people who can't do anything for us at all." This transformation didn't happen overnight. The viral airplane video became a catalyst for real change in both their lives and in the lives of thousands of others. The ripple effects of that airplane confrontation continued expanding in ways no one could have predicted. The viral video sparked a national conversation about racism, privilege, and how we treat children in public spaces. Corporate America took notice. Airlines began implementing new training programs about bias and discrimination. The hashtag Character Matters became a rallying cry for treating all passengers with dignity regardless of age, race, or perceived economic status. Universities started using the video in sociology courses as a case study in microaggressions and restorative justice. High schools incorporated it into civics curricula as an example of how individual actions can have far-reaching consequences. But perhaps most importantly, the video inspired thousands of young people to get involved in social justice work. Zoe's Literacy Foundation received over $2 million in donations from people who had been moved by her grace under pressure. Engagement question: do you believe people can truly change, or do you think Jennifer was just performing for the cameras? What does real transformation look like to you? Jennifer had lost her social standing, her husband's business suffered significant losses, and she faced federal charges that resulted in probation and community service. But through the restorative justice program, she began a genuine transformation that took months of hard work. She completed 500 hours of community service at literacy centers across the country. She underwent extensive bias training and therapy to address the prejudices that had led to her airplane meltdown. She spoke at over 150 schools about the dangers of racist assumptions and the importance of treating everyone with dignity. But the most profound change came when Jennifer started volunteering at the Literacy Center where she had done her court-ordered service, even after her legal obligations were complete. "I keep coming back," she told Dr. Chin, "because these children taught me something I never learned in my privileged upbringing. They taught me that worth isn't measured by what you have, but by how you treat others." Meanwhile, Zoe's Advocacy Foundation had helped 47 children who faced discrimination while traveling. The legal advocacy program had resulted in policy changes at 12 major airlines. The educational programs about bias and discrimination had reached over 50,000 students across the country. The viral video was now used in college courses about social justice, corporate training programs about customer service, FBI training about hate crimes, and educational workshops about responding to discrimination with grace. Mrs. Ruby Washington received her Presidential Medal of Freedom at a ceremony attended by Zoe Ethan and her father. In her acceptance speech, she mentioned the airplane incident as an example of how the next generation was continuing the fight for justice and equality. "I saw a 13-year-old girl face hatred with dignity," Mrs. Washington said from the White House podium. "I saw her respond to cruelty with kindness. And I realized that the future of civil rights is in very good hands indeed." The president, after the ceremony, personally thanked Zoe for her example of grace under pressure and her ongoing work in education. "Young lady, you've shown the entire country what real leadership looks like." Rosa Martinez was promoted to head flight attendant and now leads training programs on passenger relations and conflict resolution for airlines across the country. Her daughter joined Zoe's Phoenix Literacy Center and improved her reading level by 3 grades in 8 months, eventually becoming a peer tutor for other struggling readers. Carlos Rivera's nephew also joined the program and discovered a love for storytelling that led him to start writing his own books. His first children's book, The Girl Who Taught Kindness, was inspired by his uncle's stories about meeting Zoe on the airplane. Carlos now serves on the board of Zoe's Foundation, helping to identify families who could benefit from literacy support. Jake Morrison found a new job with a nonprofit organization focused on social justice, where his experiences with Jennifer helped him understand the importance of standing up for what's right, even when it costs you financially. He now speaks at business schools about ethical employment practices and the courage required to challenge unethical behavior in the workplace. Captain Diana Hayes continued flying, but she also began volunteering with Zoe's Foundation, using her platform to advocate for equal treatment of all passengers regardless of race, age, or apparent economic status. She established the Dignity in Travel initiative, working with airlines to create policies that protect vulnerable passengers from discrimination. Dr. Williams from Northwestern University partnered with Zoe's Foundation to create a research study documenting the effectiveness of community-based literacy programs. Their findings have been published in educational journals and used to improve reading instruction in schools nationwide. Frank Peterson used his connections in education administration to help Zoe's Foundation expand to 23 cities, creating a network of literacy centers that serves over 3,000 children annually. And Jennifer Whitfield? She became one of the most effective advocates for anti-bias education in the country. Her speeches, which initially felt like penance, evolved into passionate calls for examining our own prejudices and treating every person with dignity. "I was that person," she would tell audiences, "who thought my bank account made me better than a 13-year-old child who was actually changing the world. Don't be me. Be Zoe." The most powerful moment came 2 years after the airplane incident, when Jennifer and Zoe appeared together at a national education conference. "Mrs. Whitfield taught me something important," Zoe said to the audience of 5,000 educators. "She taught me that even our worst moments can become our greatest teachers." Her transformation shows that people can change, and that's a lesson worth sharing. Jennifer, standing beside the young woman she had once tried to humiliate, felt the weight of redemption and the lightness of forgiveness. "Zoe saved my life that day on the airplane. Not by being famous or wealthy, but by showing me what real character looks like." And Zoe Ethan? She continued changing the world, one child at a time, one book at a time, one act of kindness at a time. Because that's what people with real character do. They use their privilege to lift others up, they respond to hatred with love, and they never let the cruelty of others diminish their own capacity for compassion. By age 16, Zoe had expanded her literacy programs to 47 cities, helped over 10,000 children learn to read, and inspired a generation of young activists to believe that age is no barrier to making a difference. The airplane seat that Jennifer Whitfield tried to steal became a symbol of something much larger, the ongoing fight for dignity, respect, and equal treatment for all people. And the 13-year-old girl who refused to be intimidated became a reminder that real power comes not from putting others down, but from lifting them up. This viral airplane drama taught us that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in the positive impact you have on others. While Jennifer learned this lesson the hard way, Zoe had been living it all along. Sometimes justice comes through courts and laws and punishment. But sometimes justice comes through education, transformation, and the courage of young people who refuse to let hate win. On that airplane, two worldviews collided. One based on prejudice, entitlement, and the belief that some people matter more than others. Another based on kindness, service, and the conviction that every person deserves dignity and respect. The answer was never really in doubt. Because in the end, love always defeats hate, kindness always conquers cruelty, and children who are raised to see the humanity in everyone will always triumph over adults who have forgotten their own. Zoe Ethan didn't just keep her airplane seat that day. She kept her dignity, her compassion, and her faith in the possibility that people can change. And in doing so, she changed the world, just a little bit, for everyone who heard her story. That's the power of character. That's the strength of kindness. And that's why, sometimes, the smallest person on the airplane ends up being the biggest hero of all. If this shocking airplane drama reminded you that character matters more than money, subscribe and share this viral video. In a world full of entitled loras, we need more stories about grace under pressure and instant karma for racist behavior. What's one act of kindness you can do today to be more like Zoe Ethan and less like this airplane Laura? Share it in the comments and inspire others.